Open black lens bracket grand fissure close black lens bracket is dead. Even in the end, he was dragged into hell by the gate of hell. Natsuki thought, Ichigo has now completed revenge for his mother, and then he can go back and continue to communicate with Zanpakuto. But Kurosaki father and son bowing in front of them. Natsuki was full of doubts and couldn't help but look at Yurihara Kazuki aside. Grand fissure. As going to hell, what else do you want from me? Shua, Yurihara Kazuki opened the small folding fan, smiled and said. About this matter, let's see if I can help you or not. Talking, he clapped his hands. Tessai Tsukabishi walked out carrying a transparent coffin. The figure of Kurosaki Masaki lay quietly in it, as peaceful as if asleep. It was really dangerous back then. If I hadn't happened to see it, this soul fragment would have completely dissipated. Yurihara Kazuki walked to the coffin. In order to save her, I took out an out-of-print item, a coffin with a time-stopping effect. Could it be that you think? A crazy idea popped into Natsuki's mind. Ahahaha. This is what Kurosaki and his sons think, Yurihara Kazuki laughed. And put everything on the Kurosaki father and son, showing an appearance that has nothing to do with him. As everyone knows, this appearance is rather indifferent. But looking at the two people who bowed and begged in front of them, Natsuki said helplessly. Not to mention that your ideas are unrealistic. This is just a glimpse of Ryotsu's illusion. Can you really revive Masaki Ant? Okay. Hearing Natsuki axe, Kurosaki Ishin prepared in advance Kaido immediately. This tentacle has a special structure, and it will intercept a fragment of the soul swallowed by grand fissure, which can be used to mimic again in the future. Is there a soul fragment of Masaki Ant? Natsuki understood the thoughts expressed by Kurosaki Ishin. At the same time, it can be regarded as knowing the reason why Kurosaki and his son bowed to themselves. If there is a chance to revive the wife, mother, let alone Bo, I am afraid that they will kneel down, neither of them will hesitate. What can I do, or, what do I need to do? After confirming the purpose of the two, Natsuki began to think about what he could do with his abilities. This kind of secret thing asked me to help, it must be because I have the ability to help Kurosaki Masaki resurrect. There are only a few abilities he has mastered. Fencing? The swordsmanship of the two is stronger than him. Draw? Yes, it can only be this ability. You want me to absorb Masaki Ant's spiritual power? Natsuki looked at the two, but quickly refuted his guess. No, this may destroy the last soul fragment. Speaking of which, he remembered the reasons he made up before. I can analyze and integrate other people's Ryotsu, so I wondered. So, you want me to analyze Masaki Ant's spiritual power and inject it into her body? Seeing the reason why Natsuki came to him for help in just a few seconds, Kurosaki and his son's eyes lit up, as if they saw hope. That's right, Masaki's soul fragments can be extracted. Kurosaki Ishin revealed the situation and explained why he asked Natsuki for help. But it's just a soul fragment, and it cannot be revived unless it is restored to a complete soul state. Yurihara Kazuki interrupted at this point. Fanning the small folding fan, he said in a tone that he couldn't help himself. Masaki-san's soul fragments are too weak. Now I can only extract the soul fragments, which cannot be repaired. So the only way at present is to extract the soul fragments. Let you analyze and transform Masaki-san's spiritual power, and finally inject a large amount of spiritual power from the same source into the soul fragments, and repair them bit by bit. Heard that, Natsuki frowned. He glanced at Yurihara Kazuki who was smiling beside him. Can't do it? How is this possible? Anyone who has watched the 1000-year bloody battle knows this guy's healing ability. Open black lens bracket Kanonbaraki Benihime Aratame close black lens bracket reconstructs and transforms anything touched by Zanpakuto within range of the attack. It can be said that as long as Yurihara Kazuki is willing, he can easily extract the soul fragments and restore them at the same time. He found this excuse, don't want to help, or can't help. But since he took the initiative to help keep Kurosaki Masaki's soul fragments, the first option should be ruled out, leaving him unable to help. Why can't you help? Don't you want to expose your comprehension ability? At this moment, Natsuki guessed in his mind why Yurihara Kazuki was unwilling to help. Suddenly, Yurihara Kazuki felt a chill. It was as if someone had seen through his thoughts, but he immediately smiled conceitedly. How could it be possible? Quite a while Natsuki looked back at the Kurosaki father and son. I'm not sure if your method is correct, but I can still help you. Moment. Kurosaki father and son burst into tears. Natsuki kid, Natsuki, you bastard. The two had thousands of words to express their gratitude, but they couldn't say it for a long time because of their excitement. For this, Natsuki chuckled twice, turning to Yurihara Kazuki, he asks. I can shoot at any time, when are you going to start? Yurihara Kazuki was taken aback, then smiled and said, oh, of course, the sooner the better. Ichigo? Kurosaki Masaki looked at Ichigo. I can't believe my son has grown so big in the blink of an eye. Mother, it's me. Ichigo stretched out his hands tremblingly, wanting to throw himself into his mother's arms, but he was afraid it was just a dream. Looking at this scene, Kurosaki Masaki smiled, very broadly. Holding Ichigo in his arms, he laughed at the same time. Ichigo is grown up now. I don't like my mother like before, my mother is so sad. Listening to the gentle voice that has appeared again and again in my dreams over the years. Kurosaki Ichigo couldn't bear it anymore, hugged Kurosaki Masaki tightly, and vented his longing for these years with tears. Outside the room, Kurosaki Ishin watched the scene. The corners of this tenacious man's eyes were slightly red. Congratulations to Uncle Yixin, after so many years of separation, the family is finally reunited. Natsuki congratulated from the side. Congratulations, Kurosaki Ishin couldn't help it either. Rushing into the room, screaming, squeezed his son away and threw himself into his wife's arms. Looking at the chaotic but warm scene in the room, Natsuki smiled and turned to leave. Next, he just needs to quietly wait for the reward to come to his door. This time, the resurrection plan went very well. In just 1 week, Kurosaki Masaki woke up, but because of being swallowed by Grand Fissure. Kurosaki Masaki only has memories of 6 years ago, but even so, Kurosaki father and son are still crying like a child. In the end it was Kurosaki Masaki, one on the left, one on the right, it took a long time to calm them down. When Ichigo and Kurosaki Masaki recovered and were about to thank Natsuki, they found that the other party had already left. But mother and son don't know. Natsuki agrees to help out thanks to Kurosaki Ishin. Recalling the remuneration negotiated by the two, Kurosaki Ishin thought a little puzzled. Although I don't know how this kid knows, it's not a loss to exchange the Quincy handbook for Masaki's resurrection. At the same time, in the back mountain forest of Karakura town, Natsuki meditates cross-legged, trying to get inside. This time to help Kurosaki Masaki revive, except for Kurosaki Ishin's promised letter from the destroyer. He also gained some benefits from Kurosaki Masaki, such as the power of the Quincy Master and the remaining power of the Void Origin in her body. Of course, more importantly, he got the opportunity to enter the inner world in one fell swoop. Different from the high-rise buildings in Kurosaki Ichigo, here is a relic of the battlefield. The setting sun hangs in the air, and countless dilapidated blades are quietly inserted on the ground. Is this my inner world? Why does it feel like a battle madness, isn't it me? While Natsuki complained about his inner world, he kept looking around, looking for the soul of the sword. A moment later, found the target on a mountaintop. It's finally here, Natsuki. Soulblade turned around slowly. She is very tall, a head taller than Natsuki at 1.85 meters. Dressed in smart blue and white chivalrous costumes, with the same slender zanpakuto hanging from his waist. Wearing a blue veil, it is impossible for people to see his face clearly, except for a pair of soul-stealing blue eyes. This moment, her eyes were fixed on Natsuki. The corners of the mouth are raised lightly, revealing an insolent yet elegant smile. It's so boring to be here alone. I want to feel the trembling breath, draw the warm blood, and taste the pleasure of death. Call my name. Let me enjoy the baptism of blood with you, Natsuki. This moment, a name popped into Natsuki's mind. This feeling is very wonderful, as if the name already exists in the mind, and it will naturally emerge when you think about it. Then, to that expectant gaze, Natsuki clasped one hand and chanted. Let's enjoy the baptism of blood together, Yoli. The moment the sound fell, a handful of zanpakuto appeared in Natsuki's hand. Compared with the original appearance, the changes after Shikai are extremely obvious. The overall length is 145 centimeters, the length of the knife is 130 centimeters, the width of the blade is 3.6 centimeters, the length of the handle is 15 centimeters, there is no hand guard, the blade is black and straight without a trace of curvature, and there is a purple tassel on the end. Compared to ordinary zanpakuto, Yuri will undoubtedly grow a little, but considering Natsuki's 185 height, it's just enough. A moment later, converged Shikai's excitement. Where did it go? Natsuki became concerned about his harvest. Hear the inquiry. Yuri jumped down in front of Natsuki, licked her lips, and said, "The monster that broke into this realm, it wanted to fight me for sovereignty, so I just ate it all." The voice fell. Natsuki's expectant gaze froze suddenly. Unexpectedly, she said, "I ate them all." Natsuki is numb. What she ate was not a monster, but the emptiness he absorbed from Kurosaki Masaki's body. The void in Kurosaki Masaki's body, although it was transferred into Ichigo's body due to production. But as a corroded mother body, her soul still has the most original virtual power. This resurrection Kurosaki Masaki, Natsuki discovered the residual power of void white. Taking the opportunity to absorb it into his own body, trying to cultivate a void of his own. "I didn't think so, cultivation is over before it begins." After a long silence, Natsuki forced a smile and encouraged, "You did a good job." Yoli smiled more clearly, telling the good news. "After I ate the monster, I gained its ability at the same time. After all, with one hand in front of you." The bone mask appears and Yuri's Ryotsu becomes confused. Zanpakuto, Shinigami, Void, the three breaths are constantly mixed. Seeing this scene, Natsuki was taken aback for a moment. He didn't expect Yuri to gain the ability of Hollow after eating the original power of Zushiro. But at this moment, Yoli suddenly gave him a surprise. "Natsuki, as long as you want, you can draw the virtual power from me at any time." Natsuki opened his eyes, looking at Zanpakuto at his waist, he smiled. "Shikai and Hollow successfully mastered. After mastering the solution, you will officially reach the captain level. Now Natsuki, the stability of spiritual power is at the upper level of the vice captain. With Shikai and Hollow, you can even squeeze into the captain class. But in terms of combat ability, it is still far from the real captain level, at least he hasn't mastered the standard solution. But in the future, whether it is the Battle of Karakura Town or not, or the Millennium Bloody Battle, the degree of danger is dozens of times more serious than the current small fights. To know, even Mr. Yamamoto was killed by the plot. This makes Natsuki always have a sense of crisis, urging him to become stronger quickly. He has been so busy helping out this week that he doesn't even have time to practice. He has to rush back and continue to practice, so he can complete the solution as soon as possible. Back to the apartment. As soon as I opened the door, I heard the sound of the TV. With nothing to do recently, Rukia has become obsessed with binge-watching dramas to pass the time. Entering the living room, I saw her sitting cross-legged on a soft cushion, watching TV intently. "I am back," Natsuki called out to Rukia. Hearing the sound, Rukia realized that Natsuki was going home, and then she didn't know what to think, and looked over with bright eyes. "Natsuki, you're back just in time. Battle Chabi seems to be premiering in some cinema, take me there to see it." Natsuki wanted to say that he would continue to practice. But seeing the expectant eyes, he agreed by accident. "Then let's go together." "Great," Rukia immediately cheered. At this moment, she didn't have the sense of stability when she first came to this world. In other words, here, beside Natsuki, she doesn't need to pretend to be deep and indifferent, it's her original nature now. Looking at this scene, Natsuki, who was anxious to become stronger, was slightly taken aback. Suddenly realized that I seem to have neglected Rukia recently. When was the last time I saw her cheerful? And at this moment, Rukia, a newcomer who went to the cinema for the first time, prepared in a hurry, while tidying up, asked Natsuki, "Let me bring a telescope, I heard that the cinema is huge." "Natsuki, I heard that you can eat snacks in movie theaters, should we take some snacks out?" Natsuki. Question after question, which seemed ridiculous in Natsuki's eyes, came out of Rukia's mouth. Although these questions made him dumbfounded. But looking at the excited eyes, he patiently answered one question after another. When everything was ready, Rukia hung a lot of equipment, a notebook, she wanted to record the picture, and a camera, she wanted to take pictures. Correct, and the snacks she misses so much. Although Natsuki doesn't understand, why bring a laptop when you already have a camera? But when the two sat together under the big screen, Natsuki suddenly felt that it would be nice to come to the cinema to watch a movie once in a while. Just a little bit of a headache. Just a few minutes after he sat down, he felt a strong drowsiness hit him. Rukia rolled his eyes from the corner of the eye. Seeing that she was completely immersed in the movie, she lay down on the backrest with peace of mind. Not long after, the snoring sounded. But Natsuki doesn't know, in fact, she has been paying attention to herself. Longui's method really works. I hope you can sleep well, Natsuki. The corner of Rukia's mouth lightly twitched. Why didn't she find anything unusual? I don't know why, but self-knowledge offers little help. The only thing we can do is to keep Natsuki from worrying about himself, but seeing that he is addicted to cultivation, he still can't help but ask his friends for help. From the present point of view, she enlisted the help of a friend and apparently found the right one. But, just when Rukia chuckled, the boy next to her suddenly murmured, "Rukia, come here and let Xiaoyi shang." Immediately, Rukia's face turned red, thinking that Natsuki was still awake, and quickly looked, but saw that Natsuki was still sleeping soundly. "Natsuki, you bastard." Rukia, who was frightened, pouted meatballs on both sides of her cheeks angrily. Suddenly, seems like a good way to get revenge. You have to pay for fooling me, Natsuki. Rukia took out an oil-based pen from her bag, leaned over to draw. After a while, looking at Natsuki with a curly beard drawn on the corner of her mouth and a bastard on her forehead, she suddenly smiled. Smiled very happily. Like an innocent, ordinary girl. Sure enough, staying with you is the easiest. Don't worry about being in danger, because Natsuki will protect yourself. Don't suppress your own character, because Natsuki will tolerate yourself like this. If, just be as bold as in your dreams, then I can enjoy the feeling of being with you unscrupulously. Inside a dim movie theater, Rukia approached Natsuki slowly. It's like a jelly, soft and slippery, you can't help but sink into it, and your soul will melt. The brain stops thinking. There is only one thought left, so soft. Get out of the cinema. Natsuki stretched contentedly. Then he smiled at Rukia, who followed silently. Today's movie was really comfortable to sleep in. From the beginning to the end, it was perfect. It's really good, yet faced Natsuki's smile. Rukia's eyes flickered slightly, and she involuntarily dodged them. Suddenly, the corner of Natsuki's mouth twitched. No matter how you look at it, it looks like after doing something bad. Children who are afraid of being discovered by their parents behave. Right. Rukia, did you do something bad? Natsuki asked directly. No. Ahahaha, how could I do something bad? Rukia answered quickly, but when her gaze fell to Natsuki, she couldn't help rolling her throat up and down. Meeting Rukia's gaze, in addition, after leaving the movie theater, I was cast by others from time to time. Natsuki suddenly realized something, and hurried to the bathroom at the entrance of the cinema. After a while, there was a wailing sound. Rukia, you use an oil-based pen. Hearing the wailing, Rukia stuck out her tongue playfully, but Natsuki couldn't see it. 3 classes a year the students in the class found something was wrong. When he came back from a week off, Natsuki's state changed again, returning to the normal state a month ago. Even, watch Keigo Asano enter the classroom. He also warmly greeted him, and once again issued an invitation to the kendo club. Hey, Keigo, I haven't seen you for a week. You haven't changed at all. What, have you decided to join the kendo club? This greeting, it was silly to ask Keigo Asano, who just entered the class. Natsuki? Ha ha ha, kendo department or something, it's not like you don't know me, so don't make fun of me. Keigo Asano looked at Natsuki unexpectedly, but when he heard that he had joined the kendo club, he waved his hands quickly. He didn't understand, with so many people in the class, why they always asked him to join the kendo club. Could it be, is he really a swordsmanship genius? Hey. Thinking of this possibility, Keigo Asano smiled extraordinarily. But before the smile lasted for a few seconds, a hand knife struck from behind and hit him on the head. Keigo, you bastard. Stuck at the door and don't go in, what are you thinking? I saw Arisawa Tatsuki and Inoue Orihime standing at the door of the class, blocked by Keigo Asano. Ahahaha, sorry, if someone else. Keigo Asano might be tough, but Arisawa Tatsuki thinks it's better to forget it. The iron fist taste is not good, so he honestly came to his seat and sat down. At the same time, 2 girls entered the classroom. But I saw a familiar figure saying hello. Longui, good morning Orihime. Natsuki greeted the 2. Ah, yes, it's classmate Natsuki. Have you taken care of your family affairs? Inoue Orihime is as natural as ever. Even after 2 months of acquaintance, I still couldn't help being nervous when I saw Natsuki. Don't worry, everything is taken care of. Natsuki nodded. He has a good sense of Inoue Orihime, and he usually has a lot of contacts. You're back. Ichigo must be coming soon, right? Arisawa Tatsuki was not so restrained, and asked carelessly. The two are childhood sweethearts, they also formed a virtual hunting team together. Long Gui was naturally worried about Ichigo and Natsuki's sudden leave for so long. But it's all right now, Natsuki who took leave together has come back to class, and Ichigo must be back soon. That Ichigo kid should be back soon. Natsuki smiled jokingly. At the same time, his eyes indirectly saw Inoue Orihime beside him, but he saw her staring directly at him. Okay, illusion? I always feel that the way I look at myself is not right. But before he could seriously think about it, Rukia, who was sitting in front of him, suddenly wrinkled his expression and turned to look at Natsuki. Natsuki, here we come. With scruples Inoue Orihime by my side. Rukia didn't say so, but both Natsuki and Arisawa Tatsuki understood what she meant. I'll go, Ichigo is not here, I'm bored to death, just let me stretch my muscles. Defeated Inoue Orihime. Arisawa Tatsuki bluntly said that she will take the shot this time. Since studying with Rukia, the spiritual power in her body has also entered a period of rapid growth. Plus good karate strength. Now has the strength comparable to the low-ranking Shinigami officers. It is not easy to deal with these miscellaneous fish that appear in Karakura town. Therefore, Rukia is also very relieved to hand over Shu to Arisawa Tatsuki to solve it, please. In that case, I'm counting on you, Long Gui. Don't worry, I can still come back before class if I go now. Long Gui walked towards the door and waved his back to a few people. Upon seeing this, Rukia and Natsuki didn't care either. Chatting with the classmates in the class again, but surprisingly, Arisawa Tatsuki hurried back after going out for 10 minutes, and found the two suspiciously. I just arrived near the target. The target display on the messenger machine suddenly disappeared. Is there something wrong with this phone? She handed the phone to the two of them. This phone was purchased by Rukia at the Yurihara store especially for her. It can detect the position of Shu around it, and she uses this function to find Shu and complete the kill. This time there was an accident, when she arrived at the location marked on the phone. But he didn't find the corresponding Shu, instead he saw a chubby soul hiding in the corner and shivering. There are indeed orders. Rukia didn't quite know what the situation was. Looking at this familiar scene, Natsuki suddenly remembered Ishida Uryu, the last member of the protagonist group, and this should be his masterpiece. But think of the plot, Ichigo, who was teased several times in succession, said softly. It may indeed be that there is something wrong with the messenger machine. Let's rest today and see the situation tomorrow. That's the only way to go first. Rukia and Arisawa Tatsuki exchanged glances. The two had no other choice, so they had to follow Natsuki's method for the time being. Ishida Uryu, who had just entered the classroom, was stunned. What the hell, shouldn't it be tried a few more times, and it doesn't matter. Karakura Daiichi High School because I know Ishida Uryu's coquettish operation. Natsuki didn't care about it at all, and let the telegram beep every day. 3 days later, in the case of another trial unsuccessful. Ishida Uryu couldn't hold back at all. How could there be such a Shinigami? If he didn't go, he really didn't go once. Immediately, on the way to the club in the afternoon, Ishida Uryu suddenly appeared and stopped Natsuki and Rukia. Natsuki, Rukia, both of you are Shinigami. Why don't you go and eliminate Hollow? Why are you not nervous at all? This is not your duty. Ishida Uryu questioned the two of them. He doesn't understand. Isn't Shinigami's duty to destroy Hollow? Why can I sit in the classroom with peace of mind after receiving the instructions that appear in the virtual world? It's only been 3 days, Ishida Uryu who couldn't help jumping out. Natsuki tilted his head strangely, and asked him instead. Is there anything wrong with raising our hands when someone helps us with our work? Hear the conversation between the two. Now Rukia has reacted. It wasn't that the telegram machine was malfunctioning, but that the boy in front of him went to eliminate Shu after the telegram machine issued the command. That's why. When Long Gui went to eliminate Shu, he was in vain. But what made her curious was, how did Natsuki know that this boy would do this? But the next moment, Ishida Uryu asked her out of doubts for her. You? Natsuki, how do you know me? I never showed my ability in school. Heard that, Natsuki chuckled. Looking at Ishida Uryu, he asked back. You don't think I haven't found you, do you? As a classmate, I have long discovered the spiritual power in you that is different from ordinary people. Ishida Uryu was taken aback, but Natsuki didn't finish his sentence. A wicked smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. But let me realize that this matter is related to you. It's all because you are too flamboyant. Don't you say that your clothes are uniforms issued by the school? Show bag? Look at the wicked smile on the corner of Natsuki's mouth. Ishida Uryu gritted his teeth, pointed at his clothes, and shouted loudly. I'm not a coward. This uniform is the symbol of our Quincy clan. Ishida Uryu hates all Shinigami. In his opinion, when Shinigami came to support his grandfather, he would not die. Now the Shinigami whom he loathes, humiliating himself as a symbol of the Quincy clan, how can he bear it? Bastard. Let's fight. I want to show you my dignity as a Quincy master. So, Natsuki interrupted him suddenly. If you're looking for me just for such a trivial matter, I'm sorry, I don't have time to mess around with you. Yes, in Natsuki's eyes this is just nonsense. It's too sloppy to tell who is stronger, Quincy or Shinigami, just by killing the virtual. Not to mention, in his memory, this meaningless competition almost went wrong. There are a huge number of miscellaneous fish, but they threaten the lives of the entire Karakura town residents, that is, there are no dead people in the anime. But now this is the real world. Who can guarantee that no one will be killed because of a competition this time? However, Natsuki doesn't know. Ishida Uryu was stimulated by his playful words. Crunch, crunch, Ishida Uryu clenched his hands tightly. His eyes fixed on Natsuki, his heart was filled with unprecedented anger. Just kidding? You actually took the fight between the Quincy and the Shinigami as a joke? HMPH, then just stand aside and watch. The voice fell, he took out a false bait from his pocket and crushed it directly. Immediately, the crushed virtual bait emitted a special wave, which spread into the air. Hey, you really can't stand stimulation. Natsuki frowned slightly. He thought he refused to fight, things just don't go the way they did in the plot. Unexpectedly, this kid couldn't stand the stimulation. The virtual bait was crushed at the slightest disagreement. Virtual bait? Rukia's face changed when she saw the waves spreading in the air. Of course she knows what virtual bait is, it's just that Ishida Uryu didn't expect that Ishida Uryu had this thing, and he was still using it on the spot under the stimulation. Natsuki, find a way to stop the spread of fluctuations. Rukia shouted anxiously to Natsuki. In her opinion, if Natsuki's special ability is used, the effect of virtual bait may be erased. Pity. Ishida Uryu suddenly sneered. It's useless. Once this virtual bait is used, it can't be stopped. You can watch me kill Shu next. The voice fell, he turned his head and left directly, preparing to find a place with a clear view. Quincy is mostly a long-range shooter, and he is no exception. Only when the line of sight is open can he fully display his strength. Bastard, this kid. Watching Ishida Uryu turn and leave, Rukia was speechless. It's a sickness to endanger the entire Karakura town for a boring competition. Have no choice, she just looked at Natsuki. Feeling Rukia's gaze, Natsuki smiled. Don't worry, since I'm here, I definitely won't sit idly by. Just right, it can increase my spiritual power. The previous sentence, it was addressed to Rukia. The latter sentence is what Natsuki said to himself. To be honest, this competition is actually full of benefits for him. After all, with the drain skill, he can permanently gain part of the spiritual power by killing a void. I didn't agree at first, I just don't want to involve too many irrelevant people. But now that things have happened, all he can do is try his best to solve all the problems in front of him. By the way, enhance your own spiritual power. At this moment, Natsuki couldn't help showing a greedy smile. Virtual bait, I hope it can bring me some surprises. Karakura town. A black hole appeared in the sky. Strange-looking ghosts emerged from it, but without exception, each Shu just got out of the black hole and was killed by the incoming arrows. 1, 2, 3.11. Ishida Uryu put down the spirit bow in his hand. Looking at the gradually increasing number of black holes, he subconsciously frowned, feeling ominous. Can virtual bait attract so many virtuals? As the dispenser of false bait? It can be said that he knows the attraction of that virtual bait best. If calculated according to the number of ghosts, it can attract about 100 ghosts. Worth to talk about, this is an ongoing process, which will probably be completed in 1 to 2 hours. But now, in the past 10 minutes, the number of Shu he has eliminated has reached 11. The number of its eradication, it is obviously different from the effect produced by his virtual bait. But before he can continue to think, there are more and more black holes in the sky, and the number of virtual beings attracted is also increasing. Hateful. Ishida Uryu raised his spirit bow again. Attack the attracted ghosts in the air. At the same time, The appearance of Natsuki and the so-called playful remark appeared in his mind again. This moment, Ishida Uryu's fighting spirit was inspired again. I absolutely deny that Quincy is worse than Shinigami. And at this moment, Natsuki and Rukia split into two groups. The former kills the Shu who is attracted by the virtual bait, and the latter contacts the Kurosaki house and the Yurihara store for reinforcements. Strustling, Natsuki's figure flickered in the air. Every time it appears, it means that a void has been purified by him. Open black lens bracket ding. Close black lens bracket, kill the target. Close black lens bracket, use the drawing skill to permanently gain part of the target's spiritual power. Close black lens bracket. The system began to refresh the screen continuously. As Natsuki's spiritual power rises to the upper level of the vice captain. Now every time a miscellaneous fish is killed, it can only increase his spiritual power by 1% or even lower. Compared with the beginning, the ratio has dropped a lot. But looking at the miscellaneous fishes all over the sky, Natsuki thinks that even if it is a hard pile this time, he can raise his spiritual power to a new height. Thinking like this, he slowly retracted the knife into its sheath. Ryotsu poured into the scabbard, at the same time, staring at the midair. The next moment, Xiaoli came out of the sheath. I saw a faint blue arc-shaped sword glow flashing in midair. Pooh, 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 in an instant, dozens of ghosts were sent over. He was cut into 2 quarters instantly by this blue sword glow. It is different from the previous way of cutting out the sword with the method of cutting technique plus Ryotsu. With this knife, Natsuki integrated the cohesion effect of Crescent Sky Chong, and condensed his own Ryotsu at the tip of the knife. It makes the blade glow even sharper. Immediately, Natsuki sensed another wave of false breath. Without hesitation, he rushed away immediately. Karakura Town Commercial Street. Those with high spiritual power noticed the vision in the sky one after another. The only difference is that due to the different spiritual powers of individuals, the pictures they see are clear or not. Hey hey hey! What the hell are those in the sky? Hey! Can't you see these monsters? Run away. Some high spiritual powers, curious about what this is, try to get in touch. But there were also some people who sensed that something was wrong, and called the invisible ordinary people around them to start hiding. Suddenly, my head, the first person to try to make contact with Shu. The head was grabbed by Shu, and it was slowly sent to the mouth, puff. But in the eyes of ordinary people, this person's head seems to be caught by something, and his whole body rises out of thin air. But the next moment, there was a bang in the head, and it exploded instantly. The exploding blood and brains were stained in midair, reflecting the phantom of a monster. Suddenly, what? Regardless of those with high spiritual power who can see the void. Ordinary people with low spiritual power and unable to see the void. Knowing that there was a monster attack, they all screamed and fled around. For a while, the commercial street is in chaos. Traffic jams, stampede accidents, and some people even took advantage of the chaos to rob. And the most important thing is that natural disasters and man-made disasters collide and inevitably produce some deaths. However, just when the situation is about to get out of control, a figure stepped out from the crowd, instantly attracting everyone's attention. I'm in a hurry, you all go up together, the man said coldly, carrying a giant sword. At the same time, with the appearance of this figure, the sweet smell of Shinigami diffuses out, tantalizing every taste bud. There was no discussion, but all Shu rushed over at the same time, intending to swallow the sweet-smelling Shinigami into his stomach. But the next moment, all the Shu who surrounded him were dealt with one by one. The entire Karakura town unknowingly, 3 battlefields were divided. Natsuki, Ishida Uryu, and Kurosaki Ichigo are each in charge of a battlefield. Said it was a battlefield, in fact, it was because of too many virtual kills. The effect of attracting Shu is stronger than that of bait. Shu only gathers towards these 3 battlefields. Certainly, there are also scattered voids that attack humans. But most of these are solved by the people of Yurihara store. Or the victim, being stimulated, awakens his ability on the spot and resolves the attack. Like Sato Yasutora, Arinoe Orihime. Just like in the original book, under Shu's attack, the 2 awakened their own abilities. At the same time as time passed, the sky gradually became dark. But as if the final boss was about to come, Shu who was attracted to him stopped his movements in unison. God, the sky is broken. The bait can't attract this level of vanity. Natsuki, Kurosaki Ichigo, and Ishida Uryu looked at the sky together. Kurosaki Ichigo and Ishida Uryu suddenly trembled until their pupils shrank, and looked at the sky in disbelief. See, a hole opened in the sky. Gray-white hands poked out from the hole, and with force, the sky was torn apart. A pointed nose bony mask, from the torn sky, slowly poked your head out. Ryotsu, who was so terrifying that he was short of breath, swept across the entire Karakura town in an instant. Boom. The terrifying Ryotsu swept across the entire Karakura town in an instant. Natsuki, Ishida Uryu, Kurosaki Ichigo, Rukia Kuchiki, etc., all clearly felt the majestic Ryotsu. Chaos, disorder. This is the most impressive. But Ishida Uryu and Rukia looked dull, completely dumbfounded. Others don't know, but they both know it. What appeared this time was not an ordinary giant void, but the culmination of all ordinary imaginary evolutions, O Manos Grande Gillian. The huge body, the pitch-black robe, and the mask with a pointed nose on his face all showed his special identity. But how could it be here? How could such a mere virtual bait attract such an existence? The two of them suddenly felt a layer of cold sweat on their backs, and realized that something was wrong. They rushed towards Natsuki quickly. As for Kurosaki Ichigo, solve the virtual queen in the area you are responsible for. Run all the way to the direction where Gillian appears in the sky. Coincidentally, the location where Gillian landed happened to be in the area that Natsuki was in charge of. And at this moment, Seoul Society, Technology Development Agency. Looking at the display screen covered by red dots, Ah Jin was stunned. Hey, what's going on? Could it be that Hueco Mundo has started to attack the world? Every red dot on the screen represents an empty breath. But now, there are hundreds of red dots flashing on the entire screen. Doesn't it mean that there are hundreds of ghosts appearing in this area of the world? More importantly, a black spot of light suddenly appeared on the screen. According to the settings of the Technology Development Bureau, only Manos Grande and above will be displayed with black dots. Big event. Something big has definitely happened in this world. Before he had time to think, Ajin quickly contacted the chief of the bureau, Kuretsuchi Mayuri. After a while, Kuretsuchi Mayuri ordered the information to be reported. Therefore, a captain's meeting is held. There were only a few captains who received the order to attend the meeting. Sui Feng, Ichimaru Jin, Byakuya Kuchiki, and Jashiro Yukitaki. At the same time, Abarai Renji, who is in the 6th team, heard a rumor in the team, saying that Hueco Mundo started to attack the world. The location of the attack is the area called Karakura Town. Rukia. Abarai Renji's eyes widened in disbelief. He is very clear that the location where Rukia is stationed in this world is the area called Karakura Town. Fortunately, just when he was in a hurry, an emergency support document was sent to him. Although he didn't quite understand why the number 6 squad, which was the leader of the nobles, was going to carry out support missions, it didn't prevent him from finally breathing a sigh of relief. At the same time, Ichigo and Ishida Uryu arrive on the scene. What's the matter with this guy, such a huge body? Kurosaki Ichigo looked at Gillian in the sky. It was the first time he had seen such a large void since becoming a Shinigami. Ishida Uryu, with a trembling right hand, he pushed his glasses. Temporarily forgetting the question of the position between the two, he replied. This guy is Manos Grande, formed by the fusion of many voids. Damn it, I've only heard from the master about such a level of shu, but I didn't expect to lure it out. At this time, listening to Ishida Uryu's explanation, only then did Kurosaki Ichigo realize who he was, and looked dissatisfied. Hey, I heard from Rukia that you seem to be the one who caused this situation. Really, don't just cause trouble for others. When saying this, he wanted to reprimand Ishida Uryu. But seeing the other party's hand that was bleeding from the continuous drawing of the bow, his tone subconsciously weakened a bit. And at this moment, Natsuki looked at Gillian in the air curiously. Feeling the terrifying and chaotic ryotsu of the opponent, he had a feeling that if he could kill this guy, maybe he can touch the threshold of the captain level. If it is more powerful, it is not impossible to enter the captain's level by relying on spiritual power alone. Thinking of this, he was completely interested in. Holding the Zanpakuto scabbard at his waist with his left hand, he smiled lightly. Ichigo, Ishida-san, those around you will trouble you. This sentence stunned the two of them, but at the next moment, they saw a huge column of spiritual light bursting from Natsuki's body soaring into the sky, which made the two of them realize something. Really, the limelight has been robbed again. Kurosaki Ichigo smiled, carried Zanpakuto on his shoulders, and rushed into the empty group. HMPH, I'm not helping you, I just don't want those ghosts to attack others. Ishida Uryu opened his spiritual bow, he explained while killing the attacking hollow. At the same time, Yurihara Kazuki and Rukia rushed over. The former led a team to help eliminate Zhao Yushu, while the latter saw that Natsuki seemed to be about to make a move, so he quickly dissuaded him. Natsuki, don't be impulsive. This guy is Manos Grande, normal Shinigami can't hurt him at all. To be frank, Rukia has been a Shinigami for so many years. This is the first time I have seen Gillian up close, and I have only seen him in school textbooks before. But that didn't stop her from knowing Gillian's terror. So when she saw that Natsuki was about to make a move, she stepped forward to stop it. Natsuki, don't be impulsive. This guy is Manos Grande, normal Shinigami can't hurt him at all. Listen to Rukia's worries. Natsuki turned his head to look, and chuckled. Rukia, you seem to be a little too worried about me, it wasn't like this before. Heard that, Rukia cast an annoyed glance. Can this be the same? In the past, all you faced were miscellaneous fish with low strength? But it's different now. This is Manos Grande Gillian. It's written in the book that only royal agents have the power to deal with this kind of power. You just rush up like this, what if something happens to you? Rukia worried about Natsuki, unconsciously, I want to say, what to do if I get hurt? But as soon as the words came out of his mouth, he suddenly felt that it was inappropriate to speak like this, and hurriedly changed it to, what if something goes wrong? Not forgetting to sneak a look at Natsuki, I'm afraid Natsuki just heard the difference. But to her surprise, Natsuki smiled again, very heartily. Rukia, who is not injured in battle? Rukia blushed. Unexpectedly, the original idea was heard. Meanwhile, Natsuki continued to laugh, but this time the laughter was unbelievable. If you are facing the void, but you don't even have the courage to make a move, so what is it called Shinigami? Rukia opened her mouth, at this moment, I can't even refute it. Finally, looking at the confident smile, he just lowered his head and muttered, forget it, no matter what you think, I will always stand by your side. Heard the words, Natsuki smiled even more. He reached out and stroked Rukia's smooth hair. Ah, then it's done, stay by my side, watch me, how to kill this shoe. After all, ignore Rukia's flushed face. Turning to look at the sky again, that Gillian has completely walked out of the black cavity, and its huge body is full of power. It is different from the performance of high-level miscellaneous fish in anime. This Gillian is covered in uncomfortably black Ryotsu. With its appearance, the sky seemed to be a little darker, and the majestic Ryotsu crushed countless ordinary souls in Karakura town. Yeah, is this just the aura of Manos Grande? It really feels somewhat different the moment the voice fell. The smile on Natsuki's face disappeared, and he slowly held Zanpakuto at his waist. Immediately, a terrifying Ryotsu spilled out, even comparable to that Gillian. This is impossible. Rukia saw this scene. Ignoring the embarrassment just now, his pupils suddenly widened. An idea that she couldn't imagine suddenly appeared in her mind. At the same time, those who saw this scene. Rukia is not alone. On Yurihara Kazuki's calm face, a trace of surprise suddenly appeared, and he opened the small folding fan to cover his chin. Aiya, brother Natsuki has mastered the liberation so quickly, it's a bit unexpected. Originally in his expectation, at least until the Soul Society comes, Natsuki will be able to grasp the liberation. But he didn't expect that he had quietly mastered the liberation without anyone knowing. But compared to two people in the know, Kurosaki Ichigo and Ishida Uryu are a little unclear. From their point of view, Natsuki was simply releasing his own power, without thinking about the liberation of Zanpakuto at all. And at this moment, seeing Gillian walking towards him, Natsuki simply drew his sword out of its sheath, pointed it at Gillian, and said word by word. Let's enjoy the baptism of blood together, Yoli. The moment the sound fell, the appearance of Zanpakuto in the hand has changed. At the same time, this is also the first time Natsuki has shown his liberation outside. The narrow, straight, black blade without a trace of curvature shows the ultimate lethality. The length of 145 centimeters is enough to cut through all defenses, but the purple tassel on the tail endows this long knife with a sense of mystery. But what is even more surprising is that, just after liberation, a phantom appeared beside Natsuki. This is a mysterious woman who is wearing a blue and white strange dress, but taller than Natsuki, who is 185 by a head. At the same time, The waist is exactly the same as Natsuki's Zanpakuto. Reveal her true identity, that is, Natsuki Zanpakuto Gien e Shian Yu. The moment it appears, a faint blue ryotsu connects Natsuki and Yuri. Fight with me. Follow your orders, my lord Natsuki. As the voice fell, the ryotsu of the two swelled again, and the figures disappeared from the spot in an instant. Missing? Kurosaki Ichigo exclaimed. No, it's too fast, beyond the scope of the naked eye, so you can't see it. Ishida Uryu, who didn't know when came together, pushed the glasses on the bridge of the nose and gave the correct answer. But in fact, there were huge waves in his heart, because the steps of Natsuki and the sword spirit when they disappeared were particularly familiar to him. Cheap feet? This is impossible, it is clearly the steps of the Quincy master. At the same time, is it cheap? Also seeing this as Urahara Kazuki. After all, it was the Urahara store where Natsuki and Kurosaki Ishin made their deal in the first place. But the only thing that made him curious was, in just 3 days, how many Quincy abilities did Natsuki learn? Now, the figures of Natsuki and Yoli flickered continuously. The speed was so fast that the naked eye couldn't tell. Gillian was touched in front of him before he even noticed the existence of the two of them. But just as they were about to strike, Gillian seemed to notice something, slowly raised his right foot, and kicked forward. Slow? Slow for Gillian's size. But for one person and one soul whose size is hundreds of times smaller than it, it is extremely fast, and even just aware of the opponent's intention, the attack has already struck. Yoli. Natsuki called out. The two have the same mind, and he expresses his own thoughts in one sentence. I see, Natsuki. Yuri nodded, speeding up, passing directly through Gillian's body. Next moment, Yubu. The two said silently in their hearts. Immediately, Natsuki's figure appeared beside Yoli. This is Yuri's Shikai ability, which condenses a sword soul phantom to strengthen Natsuki's combat ability. Phantom has no substance, unable to be affected by any outside world. But the Zanpakuto in her hand can deal damage to the enemy. Yubu is the basic skill in Shikai state, which can make Natsuki flicker to Yuli's side, and vice versa. Yuri can also flicker to Natsuki's side. At the same time, with Rukia and Urahara Kazuki explaining. Kurosaki Ichigo also learned that Zanpakuto was liberated, and looked at Natsuki and Yuri enviously. The moment the position changes, Yu Mingshan, Natsuki tapped his feet and quickly rushed to the sky. The spiritual power on Yuli's body was automatically transmitted to him, increasing the speed by about 50%. This is the rush skill in the Shikai state. Use Yuli's spiritual power to strengthen yourself and enhance your speed. In addition, there are many matching chopping techniques, but they are more suitable for fighting human enemies. Next moment, Natsuki appeared in midair. Level with Gillian's bone mask, looking at each other. Ji Li was silent for a moment, his brain seemed to be thinking, and then, his head was slightly raised, and the huge ryotsu condensed in his mouth. Suddenly, a group of black and red spiritual light balls took shape. The aura of destruction vented out in this ball of spiritual light. Far ground, Sero. Rukia's eyes widened in shock, and she asked in surprise, is that guy going to use Sero to attack Natsuki? What is Sero? Curious, Ichigo asked directly. Sero, that's an advanced attack skill mastered by Manos Grande. To put it simply, it is to hit the spirit particle at a high altitude to form a ray flash, which has super destructive power. Urahara Kazuki heard the question, so I simply helped to answer it, and finally specially reminded. If this Sero's attack target is Karakura town, it can instantly destroy half of Karakura town. What? Destroy half of Karakura town? Kurosaki Ichigo was stunned. He didn't expect Sero to be so powerful, he just wanted to use a knife to chop it. As for Ishida Uryu, what Natsuki said to him came to mind again. He clenched his fists uncontrollably, but looking at Gillian's condensed Sero, he couldn't let go, and muttered regretfully. Nonsense. Yes, my actions were indeed nonsense. To cause so much trouble in Karakura town because of a conflict of emotions, Rukia is on the sidelines. He sighed softly, shook his head, and said nothing. And at this moment, watch as Sero coalesces into shape. The corner of Natsuki's mouth raised a maniacal laugh. Sero? There is nothing to be afraid of. Yoli, use that trick, just try it, it's power in this world. No problem, Natsuki. Yuri's figure appeared. The spiritual power covered the opponent's body again, and the consciousness link was successful. The voice fell. One person, one soul, one front and one behind, standing in midair. But Yuli's phantom kept getting bigger at this moment, and it became twice its original size in just an instant. At the same time, one person and one gang slowly put Zanpakuto in the scabbard. The movements are completely synchronized, as if the same person is operating. The faint blue Ryotsu also shrank into the scabbard, emitting a violent chi-chi sound. Next moment, one person, one soul instantly draws the sword. The faint blue light leaves an afterimage in the air. Two Zanpakutos slashed out in a huge gesture. Use soul cut, X2. Cut off two Zanpakuto at the same time. The violent wind pressure condensed in the gap between the two knives, absorbing the overflowing spiritual seeds from all around. But the real attack, it is the edge formed after the spiritual power is extremely compressed. Pu X2. The condensed Sero splits into 3 in an instant. The attack didn't stop for a moment. Zanpakuto went straight to Gillian's head. The wound is as smooth as a mirror. The head was divided into 3 parts, and it hit the ground to stir up a cloud of dust. The 2 sword glows broke away from Zanpakuto, and flew parallel to the distance. The wind pressure blew across the ground, but left a cobweb-shaped crack. The power of Yuhun Duan Slash can be seen from this Madara. At the same time, a quaint door in the air appeared out of nowhere and opened slowly. Several hell butterflies flew out of it, and then a man with red hair walked out of it. Is this the present world? Sure enough, as in the report, there are fake Ryotsu everywhere. Feeling the breath of Ryotsu spread in Karakura town, Abarai Renji frowned, worried about his friend's safety. Sudden, there was a tingle between his brows. As if a crisis was approaching, he subconsciously turned his head to look. This is... Abarai Renji's eyes widened suddenly. I saw one up and one down, 2 dark blue saber lights, one big and one small, came towards me. What's the situation? Look at the incoming sword light. Renji hastily blocked Zanpakuto in front of him. Ding, these 2 dark blue sword glows are on Zanpakuto, forcing him back continuously. However, seeing that he was about to be pushed into the boundary crossing gate, a cold voice suddenly sounded behind him. Get out of the way. Hearing this sentence, Abarai Renji, who was struggling to resist, did not hesitate, and immediately dodged to the side. Without the sword light to resist, go straight to the world transmitting gate behind you. But at the moment when these 2 blade lights were about to hit the piercing gate, a slender figure stepped out of it, the white captain's Haori, the star leading pliers symbolizing nobility, and the neckerchief named silver and white windflower yarn. All show the identity of the visitor. Soul Society, Gote 13th Division, 6th Division Captain Byakuya Kuchiki. Facing the sudden attack of the sword glow, he opened his hand without changing his face, aiming at the sword glow. 39 of Bakudo round gate fan, instantly. A circular spirit shield, appearing in front of him, resisting the sudden attack of the sword glow. But something unexpected happened suddenly. After the 2 blade lights collided with the protective shield was instantly covered with cracks. This is... Feel the Ryotsu contained in the sword light. A surprise appeared on Byakuya Kuchiki's calm and stern face. The power of Shinigami. There is pure Shinigami power in these 2 blade lights. It can even be said that this is a purer Shinigami power than many Shinigami in Soul Society. But don't wait for him to continue feeling. The shield began to creak. Byakuya Kuchiki looked at the 2 blades again, touched his waist with one hand, and Zanpakuto unsheathed it. Cut. The moment the protective shield shattered, his Zanpakuto slashed straight ahead, toward the sword glow. Ding ding ding. The sound of iron tools intersecting continued to be heard. This sword glow confronts Byakuya Kuchiki. It's a pity that the sword glow is powerless after all, and as time goes by, the Ryotsu in the sword glow is gradually exhausted. Not even Byakuya Kuchiki pushes hard. It only takes a few seconds for these 2 sword glows to shatter, turning into spirit particles and dissipating in the air. And at this moment, Natsuki falling slowly from the sky. Listening to the system prompt, a satisfied smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Open black lens bracket ding. Close black lens bracket, kill the target Gillian. Close black lens bracket, drain skills and use them to permanently gain part of the spiritual power of the target. Instantly, the Ryotsu inside him started to skyrocket. Originally, Ryotsu was at the upper level of the vice captain. After an afternoon of hunting, he can break through to the captain level with a single kick. The Ryotsu obtained from Gillian finally helped him break through and successfully entered the captain rank. But when he hit the ground, his eyes suddenly widened. I saw a blue attribute light group falling on the ground. Through the attribute light group, Natsuki can vaguely see the 4 words, Battle Instinct. Battle Instinct? Although I don't know the effect of the skill light group. But this does not prevent the joy of acquiring a new skill. Raise your hand a little, and this group of attribute light will automatically fly into Natsuki's body. Suddenly, the system beep sounded again. Open black lens bracket ding. Close black lens bracket open black lens bracket host pickup skill, Battle Instinct, close black lens bracket. It is detected that this skill has a high degree of compatibility with Mine Eye, and it will be automatically fused into a new skill, Battle Intuition, which will be displayed in the skill list. Merged into a new skill? Natsuki was puzzled by the effect of the new skill, and said silently in his heart. System, query the current attribute value. Natsuki. Open black lens bracket sex. Male, race, human, basic attributes, strength 43, speed 51, physical strength 41, wisdom 40. Skill 1. Swordsmanship LV.6, 21/30, skill 2. Absorb LV.3, 11/15. Skill 3. Battle Instinct LV.1, 0/5, skill effect 1. Greatly enhanced perception and scope. Skill effect 2. Actively used in battle, it can accurately perceive the target's flaws, and has a 10% chance to predict the target's next attack. Natsuki feels the newly fused skills. Skill effect 1 is the same as before, mainly skill effect 2. There is a 10% chance of predicting the target's next attack. Although the chance is a bit low, in actual combat, it may produce unexpected effects. At the same time, see Natsuki fall to the ground. Rukia, Kurosaki Ichigo and others gathered around. You kid actually hides so deeply. Looking at Zanpakuto with Natsuki's waist in a sealed state, the former joked. She can't forget a week ago Natsuki couldn't see Shikai's disappointed look. Natsuki, teach me how to Shikai if you have time, those moves just now are so cool. Ichigo also came over. He really wants to master Shikai, if you can change your ridiculously big Zanpakuto. It will be much more convenient when fighting in the future, right? Ichigo thought in his heart. Hearing what the two said, Natsuki shook his head, and said in a deep voice. There's no rush to celebrate, and don't forget, Karakura town has other things to wrap up. Heard that, the two were stunned for a moment. Karakura town was hit today. If one is not careful, there may be a big problem. Fortunately, Urahara Kazuki spoke at this moment. I saw him fanning the small folding fan, and said with a confident smile. Everyone, please rest assured, I have already inspected the entire Karakura town before, and the follow-up issues will be dealt with accordingly, so don't worry. Hear this, several people finally settled down. But because the sky was completely dark, everyone separated after a few pleasantries. On the way back to the apartment, Natsuki and Ruki walked side by side. But when passing by a street, the latter's eyes suddenly lit up. Natsuki. The first time we met, it seems to be here. Heard that, Natsuki stopped. After a while, he pointed to an alley and said with emotion. I met you here at the time, I didn't expect it to be so long, it's so fast. But the moment the voice fell, as if feeling something in his heart, Natsuki looked up into the air. I saw a figure squatting on the top of the telegraph pole, and suddenly said to himself, time really flies. Before you know it, you've been away from Soul Society for 2 or 3 months, Rukia, long time no see. Under the moonlight, the red hair of the visitor was particularly conspicuous. Immediately, Rukia's pupils shrank suddenly, and she said in incredible shock, Renji.